Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla stock, what we can expect moving forward and all that good stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, as per usual, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, etc., I do share my thoughts every single day the market is open in my YouTube membership section. The link is down below with the description to join. If you're interested, for just $3 a month, you get access to my information, updates, technical analysis, etc. every day, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks as well. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all that, plus NVIDIA daily updates as well every single day. So jumping into it though, however, Tesla unfortunately closing the day down another almost 3.5%, closing at $417.20 per share, which compared to the market, the market definitely having a bit of a rough day. Tesla, you can argue is relatively close to performing relative to the market, maybe a slight underperformance, but not too much more. And yeah, let's just go over it, right? So what does this mean moving forward, right? I mean, things are starting to look a little bit less appealing for the bulls here, in my opinion, but there is still a ray of hope, I guess you can say. So I'll give you my thoughts. So first, keep in mind, market is obviously closed Wednesday. And of course, we do have some potential, tax loss harvesting, just maybe end of year profit taking, whatever the case may be, right? So, could get some, wonky price action today and maybe even tomorrow. But nonetheless, just strictly looking at technicals, Tesla is pretty much closing at a very crucial level. Now, the first and most obvious thing is the fact that, well, we pretty much have already lost the rising channel, right? This rising channel that we've been in pretty much ever since the election has been lost, unfortunately. So, there is that, which is obviously not the most ideal thing in the world, right? So the fact that we broke down below it pretty much today, remember how on Friday I mentioned how the close was pretty much right at that bottom line of the channel, how it's technically still there, but it's not super convincing. And that's kind of what I said on that day. Well, this is why, right? This is why I said it was not super convincing, right? It just, it wasn't really, I wasn't buying it. Let's just say that, right? Literally and figuratively. So the fact that we gapped down below, which is not what I wanted to see. I said I want to see a gap up. Instead, I got a gap down. We ended up coming back up. We couldn't even fill the gap. That's number one. That's, a little bit concerning. But, best case scenario I see right now for the bulls is if we do hold this area, which is 415 roughly, which is still very important, which is where the 21 EMA is, which is where that previous all-time highs, obviously resistance, now support, or hopefully support, is currently sitting. There is still a ray of hope for the bulls, right? As long as we hold, again, pretty much 415. Now, if we do hold 415 and we do have that, potential move up higher, we could potentially make our way back up to retest this channel breakdown, which, maybe if it happens to say this week, can easily take Tesla back into the, well into the 430s, maybe even low 440s. It really just depends on when it happens, because that retest, the channel's technically still rising, right? It depends on when it actually happens. But best case scenario is we come back up to retest that channel. And again, usually with these kind of situations, I assume it'll be a successful retest. And by that, what I mean is, we most likely will get rejected and make our way down even lower, right? That's kind of my best case scenario for the bulls right now. Realistic, I guess you can say. Now, the actual best case scenario that I don't think will happen, because this is one of those things where I assume it's not going to happen until proven otherwise, right? Is we break back into the channel essentially. I don't think that'll happen. Obviously, if it does, then okay, we'll react accordingly. But usually when you see these kind of breakdowns, I never assume that the retest will be a retest that quote unquote fails, and in this case we go back in the channel. I assume the retest, if we get one, will be just a successful retest into continuation of this potential bearish selling pressure essentially, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing, right? For the best-ish case, if you will, for the bulls. The more base case situation for the bulls is we just continue straight down, right? There's no retest, nothing like that. We pretty much just continue straight down back into the 300s, right? And I do think that they both overall lead to the same outcome, in my opinion. It's just whether or not we get one more push up before we come down versus just going straight down from here, right? But ultimately, both scenarios, whether we do this or whether we do this, lead to the same situation, which is, again, into the high-ish, we'll say 300s, which is where the market bias is currently sitting, potentially even going as low as, again, the 360s roughly, which will be another decent drop from here. There'll be another 14-ish% drop to retest this area that was, of course, an old area of resistance. Now, could be turned into a nice looking support. That could be something else to watch out for, right? That, could be definitely an area to watch for, a retest, right? You can easily take a Fibonacci, maybe even from here, bring it up to here, right? So you have the first level I would look for, honestly, is probably, in the 380s, which is the 618 Fibonacci retracement level, or you can break it down here, whatever, same idea, around $380 per share, which lines up roughly with that market bias. or we make our way all the way down to this green Fibonacci levels, which is again pretty much around that 360s, 350s, something like that. Probably around 360-ish, give or take, which is also that old resistance, hopefully now turns support. But the thing I'm looking at right now, the thing I'm not obviously excited as, from a bullish perspective is, breaking down below the channel. I don't like the fact that we broke down below this channel. It unfortunately finally happened. Like I mentioned, of course, it will at some point happen. It's just, whether or not this is going to be that moment or not. So far, it seems like it is. We'll see if this is, again, you have to remember, we are at the end of the year. There could be some wonky price action. This still has a chance to be a massive bear trap. This could still technically come back into the channel. Now, again, like I said, I don't assume that's going to happen. I only react according to that if it actually does happen. I'm not going to start thinking it's going to happen until it actually happens. Because again, to me, usually the odds of that happening and these being false breakdowns, they're not super high, right? They're not impossible, they're not zero, but they're not super high percentage that this will be a false breakdown and we just go back into the channel. So I'd rather wait for confirmation on that than just assume it's going to happen today, essentially, as of right now. So let's see, right? But again, my base case is making our way back down somewhere around this general vicinity right here, high to mid 300s. And that's where I think some pretty meaningful support will start coming into play. And then we could potentially get a nice little bounce from there. And of course, we'll, figure out where potentially the bounce can head to based on how the price action looks like. And, assuming we actually come down to this overall general level. Now let's take a look at the weekly chart here. The weekly chart, obviously the first day of the week. But yeah, some definitely concerning signs. So we'll see how this one plays out. Obviously, there's still time. The monthly chart is something a little bit more interesting. Now, if we do close the monthly chart below 415, yeah, I'm not gonna be happy. Tomorrow is the last day of the month, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so tomorrow, if we close the day and the month below 415, I'm not gonna lie, it's not great. I'm not gonna lie, it's not great, right? It could be better, right? Not super convincing. Another thing to watch out for in the monthly chart is RSI. The RSI in the monthly chart, very, 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 very overextended. Each time it's gotten to these levels that's overextended, it's gotten some level of pullbacks. Now here, obviously it kept going up despite the RSI being oversold. So it's not perfect, of course. But instead what we were doing is essentially creating a massive bearish divergence. But another good example when Tesla wasn't pretty much just straight up short squeezing like a maniac, which it technically is right now, but it was over here, right? We finally made this massive RSI that was massively overbought. And then what happened? We went from overbought RSI ultimately back down to an oversold RSI, which came all the way from 400 all the way down to $100 per share. Now I'm not saying that's going to happen, of course, but the point I'm just trying to make is the fact that we are still very, very overheated on the monthly chart. On the weekly chart, we're still overheated. The weekly chart stochastic is now crossing back to being bearish as well, so watch for that as well. So there are still some concerning signs. Bring out the Bollinger Bands. We're still towards the top end of the Bollinger Bands, right, on the monthly and the weekly. Again, the monthly doesn't mean it has to come all the way down back to the other side, of course. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it does also just mean the fact that we're still overheated. I know I've been saying this for a while, and it's starting to finally play out. Again, these things take a while. They're not, instant, of course, but, we are still overheated, right? Even on the weekly time frame. And again, I think even just coming down to about 360, over the next, let's say, week or two, maybe even sooner, could be a good sign. Not a good sign for the bulls, but it could be just a nice little, almost like a reset for the stock. Give the stock time to cool off. You can't just keep going only up, right? This doesn't work like that. It does not work like that unless, of course, you're Palantir. If you're Palantir, then I guess you pretty much only go up. Pretty insane stuff. But normally that's not the case, right? Normally that's not the case. So anyway, that's kind of my general consensus, right? That's kind of my overall perspective. I do expect overall bearish continuation back down into the mid to high 300s. And that's kind of my base case right now. I do expect that to happen, and we'll see how it plays out. Again, as long as 415 continues to hold, however, the bulls still have a shot to even potentially turn this into a massive bear trap. That is still a possibility. Keep that in mind. To me, what would really, even further increase the percentage of that continuation to the downside, like I said, mid to high 300s, 360, 380, something like that, would be a daily close below 415. That would increase those chances by a decent amount, in my opinion. So let's see how this plays out, ladies and gentlemen. We're in for an interesting situation nonetheless. Taking a quick look at options flow. A little bit of a muted options flow on Tesla today. Nothing too crazy. Pretty mixed flow. Bears kind of slightly dominating, I would even argue. Tesla, you can see here's a 22 million confirmed bearish flow. So, a little bit of, all over the place. Nothing, again, slightly more bearish on the options flow, but ultimately the chart, it does ultimately tell the story, right? It does ultimately tell the story. And right now, this breaking down out of this channel is not good. It's not good. It's not what the bulls want to see. And at this point, I don't really see any. I personally don't see any reason to start buying anywhere around here, unless you're hoping that 415 holds. And And I get a lot more interested, you know, again, somewhere around this market bias / about 360. That's where I start getting more interested personally, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not in a rush. I'm focusing on other things personally right now. I'm letting Tesla just kind of do its thing. I don't like the way the stock is moving lately, so that's why I've been kind of avoiding it for a bit. And I'm just letting these things play out. Now, one thing that can happen is if we do make our way down, I should mention this quickly, to let's say, you know, again, mid to high 300s. What we could be doing actually is we could be actually setting up a massive little bull flag. So actually, let me just copy paste this one. Let me see. Hopefully, if it's a parallel channel, oh, it is beautiful. Yeah, this is perfect, right? We could be setting up a pretty large bull flag. So keep in mind, this is a possibility still, right? This, you know, this could be still that bullish setup. We lose this, you know, we lost this channel, which is bearish, and we could see some continuation on the bearishness. But if we do make our way down to the mid to high 300s, right? We could make our way down something like this over the next, you know, some time. And this, even the 380s alone could be enough with the market bias. That alone could be the bottom touch of the bull flag. And we could get a pretty nice looking run after that. So it'll be a 1, 2, 3, 4. And then usually on the 5th touch point, you break. Watch for that as well. That could be pretty crucial. So anyway, let's see how this plays out. Let me know what you think down below. And I'll see you for the next one. Peace.